You're listening to the voices behind Women's Cricket Chat. That's Hannah, Georgie, Cassie, Mihika and Alex. Coming up on today's podcast, this episode is a little different to the ones we normally do, where we sit down with a player or a former player, coach, anyone really who's involved in the women's game, and hear about their journey into women's cricket. In this week's episode, we chat to Lucy Ford, who co-founded HerGameToo, and we learn about why the campaign is so important. And we felt it was important to discuss HerGameToo and the strides they've made and going into different sports now. Other than football, they've now just recently branched out into cricket. And we've always said we want to help grow the women, and we've always said we wanted to help grow the women's game, but we also want to make cricket a game that is fair and equal for everyone. Hello and welcome to the Women's Cricket Podcast. Today I'm joined by Mihika, and we're also joined by Lucy Ford from HerGameToo. So welcome, Lucy.
Hi, thanks for having me on. It's a real pleasure and honour to be asked.
No, we're absolutely thrilled and delighted to have you on. So I think a good place to start would be just explain to our listeners about what is HerGameToo and how did the idea come about?
Yeah, so HerGameToo was founded in May of 2021. Even just saying that just sounds weird because for the last kind of year I've been saying, oh yeah, it's this year, but no, we've gone past a year now. So yeah, it was my good friend Kaz's idea. So she had experienced a lot of abuse, like sexist comments on social media for commenting about, a football scoreline of another team. I'm a massive football fan. I support Bristol Rovers. I'm a season ticket holder and have been since I've been 10, and I'm not 10 years old anymore. I can say that. And then and I think with lockdown we kind of noticed that we couldn't go to games, like any of us couldn't. We couldn't go watch live sport, so we kind of were watching it on TV or whatever kind of platforms we could use. And then after the game would finish, people would just go online and kind of tweet their opinions instead of discussing it in a pub or still at the game or with whoever. And it just seemed like when it just sounded like there was a real increase in this sexist abuse, this sexist comment, not just to other fans but to like female pundits and female players and just women involved in the game. So we decided to we wanted to do something about it. So it was FA Cup final day in May of last year. We decided to launch a video. So there's 12 girls initially involved who support a range of different clubs all over the country. And we all kind of held up comments of what had been either like said to us online or said to us in person. Some of the comments had been said to the girls like face to face. And then, so we just decided to put that video out, just built up the day before on our own kind of social media, created the HerGameToo obviously name. And and that's where it kind of took off. Really, it was a real kind of, we didn't really know what the reaction was going to be. We didn't know if people were going to feel like, oh yeah, this is my experience too, or we just didn't know. And within the first 24 hours the video got 1 million views, which is was absolutely mind-blowing. And then from there, one of our first steps was we wanted to do a survey and kind of get the experiences of women in football, and obviously, like I said, not just fans, but whatever kind of way they kind of participate in a game. And that was quite significant because over 90% had seen sexist abuse online towards a woman in football, and over 63% had experienced it themselves, and over 50% experienced it themselves online, and over 58% had experienced it in person. And that was, we had almost 400 responses when we sent out the survey via DM. And then that was one of our next steps, was we wanted to go to the clubs, because one of the things that we noticed was there wasn't like reporting systems in place, or fans didn't feel comfortable to report things because either stewards didn't know how to deal with it, or didn't feel like they were going to be taken seriously, or I've had incidents happen where they haven't been and not felt like they wanted to go back to games. So we kind of went to the clubs and just said, what we're about, what we kind of aim to do, having the reporting system in place, but also, having a presence of HerGameToo on the ground, and just, encouraging women and girls to, attend these games. And the responses from the club have been really positive. I think we've got our partnerships probably over 150 now, across, the Football League to grassroots levels to other organisations, with all kind of, each professional club has got a reporting system in place. And also we're also keen to have ambassadors in place, so that be a fan that, you know, attends games quite regularly, who can be like the go-to between us and them, but also be like someone that people could go to about, you know, these comments, but also someone who, you know, if they've got ideas about, you know, how to increase, you know, female fans attending games, then, you know, bounce ideas off of her and then they can come to us. So yeah, and then dedicated fixtures has been a real positive, you know, seeing lots of young girls attending their first game for the very first time because of having this dedicated game, or, you know, players warming up in toy shirts with our logos on. It's been, yeah, obviously there's been some really difficult points. I know that me and Kaz personally have had some really difficult times, you know, even at our own club, but we've also had some really, really positive experiences. And, you know, I think one thing that sticks out to me was Exeter were one of our first partner clubs, and it was released after they did their dedicated fixture. I think they were the first ones to do it in October. There was an Iranian woman had come to the game when Exeter had played Bristol Rovers, so my team, and they just announced the partnership on the Friday, played on the Saturday, and this woman was attending her first ever game, because in Iran she couldn't attend games, you know, it wasn't allowed. And you know, to see they had the LED boards with the HerGameToo logo on it, and she said, you know, I knew that I felt welcome. I knew I felt welcome at Exeter City, and that for me was just an amazing moment. Just to even read that, it made us feel quite emotional actually, because it kind of made me sit back and think, you know, there's places in the world that, you know, it's illegal for women to watch, you know, football, and I just couldn't get my head around it.
I know, like it's absolutely crazy, and honestly, I can vouch that as a female, like even when it comes to watching or giving a comment about sport, forget about playing, you always get some comment about how you probably don't know enough, or like, I don't know, it's very stupid, and I think every female can relate to this sort of issue. So it's nice to see NGOs like this coming up and spreading more awareness. I was wondering, so like, did you already have an idea that you want to have an organization when you posted the video, or was it something that just came about and somehow it worked out and was successful?
Yeah, so we were just kind of really wanted to highlight our experiences. So that was when we came together. So Kaz kind of basically came to me in the April of 2021 and said, you know, do you feel like there's a campaign out there for sexism in football? And I said I wasn't really aware of one. So that's why we decided to do the video to highlight our experiences. So we were the point of, you know, calling us what we did. That was just kind of one of the girls came up with that name. You know, we were trying to abandon ideas like what could we call ourselves, or what, you know, call the account, call, you know, the video, the hashtag. And then yeah, when we posted it, we honestly didn't know what sort of reaction, and since then it's just kind of like completely kind of steamrolled, I guess. You know, I think, you know, there's been times where I've had to really sit back and like pinch myself, you know, to see, for example, we partnered with Leeds United and they did a dedicated fixture against Manchester United, and all the first team Leeds players were wearing warm-up tops with our logos on, and it was live on Sky Sports. Now for us, that was a real like wow moment, because it reached another level of audience that it hadn't had before. You know, we're literally just 12 female football fans, you know. For example, in my day job, we also all do this voluntarily as well. So we all do day jobs. So, you know, Kaz works in video and kind of in media side of things, but more like as an edit assistant. I work in like council, so I'm more admin based. Leah kind of does graphic design, and Amy works in theatre. And Eve, for example, she works for Leicester City in the community, but she's kind of more community side of things. So when we did it, we just kind of was just like, well, this is just a video. We didn't think that it was it's almost sometimes, you know, every day there's something, you know, another email, someone wants to partner, chat about something, and you know, and it is amazing, you know. And you know, one of our key kind of next aims is we're really keen to kind of spread it into schools and education, not like just at primary school level, but secondary school level, higher education, you know, football clubs, community trusts, you know. And obviously something that we've obviously done now is, you know, because the club kind of approached us, we've kind of spread it into different sports.
Yeah, and I wanted to pick up on the fact that you were saying that, you know, the Exeter players were wearing the shirts and the Leeds United men's first team were wearing the shirts, and it's being broadcast live on Sky to millions of people in the UK, and even those, it's being broadcast worldwide to those who watch it on illegal streams who probably shouldn't. But anyway, how pleasing is it for you to see HerGameToo gain this sort of traction, and for it to be, and to have, I suppose, a Leeds men's first team be able to come out and support this great organisation when at times before players perhaps would have been a little bit hesitant?
Yeah, it's been honestly amazing. The support we've had, even from the very first day, from, clubs, players, people in the sports industry itself, from all different levels, has been, phenomenal. And I don't think any of us really expected us to get that sort of support. We obviously we didn't really know what it was kind of going to be like, or what sort of reaction we were going to get. And to be not even a year old and to have players like Patrick Bamford wearing our shirt, Calvin Phillips being part of the press release launch, that was a real kind of wow moment. He's an England international, and just to see it on TV, it was amazing. And one of my good friends works over in America in kind of sports, and he was saying how that game was broadcast on NBC, and he was sending me pictures of the shirts, and that was, so it was shown in America, and that was just like, oh my gosh, because obviously there are people that support Leeds and obviously Manchester United in America, and people are going to see that and be like, oh, what's that, what's that about, and then can look online and find out more about us. And it's just obviously this is all audio, but you can see I have a massive smile on my face, so I'm extremely proud.
You should be, because it's so hard to get something to spread to that extent in 1 year itself. Honestly, it's amazing. I was wondering, so then how did you decide to branch out to cricket? What was the inspiration behind that?
So it was quite interesting, actually. So Gloucestershire Cricket Club, together with Western Storm, kind of approached us, I think it was a couple of months ago, and said, we've seen what we're doing, have you had any thoughts to branch out into cricket? And so me and a couple of girls kind of got our heads together and we thought about it, and I thought, well, I'm a cricket fan. I mean, my knowledge isn't as good as some, you girls and other women that I follow on social media. I'm just more of a fan that just likes to enjoy it and watch it. And then I thought about it and I thought, well, I just don't see there's any reason why we can't spread it into different sports. So we kind of got together kind of some people that, within the kind of the HerGameToo football team who are also cricket fans as well, or kind of play. There are a couple of girls like Emma, she plays for her local side, and Ellie, she kind of plays at uni, and obviously myself as a fan. And we kind of obviously decided that we wanted to obviously then partner with Gloucestershire Cricket Club and Western Storm. And that's kind of how HerGameToo cricket kind of grew, really. I was really fortunate myself because they did a dedicated fixture on the 1st of June. So Western Storm played in the T20, in the Charlotte Edgeworth Cup, and then in the evening, then Gloucestershire played in the T20. And just to be there on the day, but also to kind of go through the social media and kind of read it, was just amazing. That game was also on Sky Sports as well, and all the players were wearing the warm-up tops. Obviously, we kind of amended the logo to be more cricket based, so with the cricket ball, which is really, really cool. And and Gloucestershire had a board with our logo on, so I was able to have a picture with both sets of players, and just to kind of see the support. But Gloucestershire and obviously Western Storm together have been amazing from the very beginning, and Jess and Pete, the media, the comms guys there, have been super, super supportive. And then from there we kind of wanted to mirror what we've done in the football side, so to have the ambassadors and to have people on board that can kind of champion what they do, or advise, who've got more knowledge than ourselves and kind of can help out or open doors with certain things. So for example, we've got Hannah, who I know is part of this podcast, on board as an advisor, and she's been amazing since she's come in. Obviously I know that she's very soon to have her baby, so we're making sure that she's not taken on too much. And then we've just literally announced today our first champion, so obviously Georgie Heath, again, someone who and her knowledge of cricket is amazing. And just when me and Mark's kind of he's one of the guys who's really kind of helping us out on the cricket side. When we spoke to her, she was just so supportive of what we're doing. And then we've got a couple of ambassadors. So Abby Slade from Somerset, who I'm sure many of you have seen her social media. She is cricket through and through, and her passion is so clear to see, even though we support different teams within the West Country, because obviously I support Gloucestershire and she supports Somerset. And then we've got Polly as well for Edgbaston. And I think as we've only kind of partnered with Gloucestershire and Western Storm so far, we're obviously really, really keen to hopefully get partnerships across all the counties, both obviously the men's side and the women's side. And just kind of see how far it can go. So that's kind of what our aim. And obviously I think this week on I'm trying to think, I think it was yesterday actually, with the women's test being taking place next week, and people tweeting their excitement, but then it ended up being something, I don't know, it was just it was really sad to see, actually, obviously, you know, the Barmy Army, of course, you know, they want to support the women's team as much as they support the men's team, and, you know, did a harmless tweet to say, oh yeah, it starts next week, like, be exciting about it. And it just ended up being something that I know almost became like a pile-on of people saying, oh, I don't want to watch that, like, why are you shoving it down our throats? And to me, even though it was really upsetting to see that, and obviously it's hard, and I hope you know that the women players are going to see that, and I hope that they don't feel disheartened, but almost kind of emphasizes why we're doing what we're doing in a way, because on like social media, you know, you can still see that there is an issue, and obviously it isn't just football, it's, you know, cricket, like these attitudes, these misogynist attitudes are still there.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I think it's such a shame that in 2022 we're still having these discussions about misogyny in sport, in women's sport in particular, considering last year, you know, was a pioneering year for women's sport, was a record-breaking, groundbreaking year for sport. And to then have a man who's never watched women's cricket or women's sport in his life say, oh, it's not as good as the men's. Like, no one's asking you to sit there and watch it. If you don't like it, just turn the channel over. Like, is anyone sitting there holding a gun to your head saying you must watch it? No.
And that's the thing, it's like, you know, people aren't saying, it's not like saying, oh, you have to watch women's football, you have to watch women's sport. You know, we're not saying that you have to enjoy it, but, you know, if there's people that are enjoying it and playing it, like, let them. There's nothing wrong with that. And like I said, it's sad in 2022 that, you know, people are still, you know, harboring these attitudes. And yeah, it's just really disappointing, but it kind of almost proves exactly why we're doing what we're doing. And, you know, we want to support, you know, obviously any women that are going to the games, obviously making sure that they, you know, feel like they're in an atmosphere that is supportive. And if, you know, if there is any instance, knowing that they can report it and actually feel like comfortable, also encouraging, you know, young women and girls to attend the games, but also participate as well. I think participation is, you know, key. I mean, I'm trying to think, growing up in like primary school and secondary school, I don't ever remember like cricket being an option like we could play in school. Like even in PE, it was more like other sports. And, you know, I've been kind of, like I said, I'm not amazing at sports, so I'm not going to say I ever would have played for any sort of level. But, you know, it's like not even having those options to, you know, play it. It's just, yeah, it's just kind of sad. And I hope that, you know, in 5-10 years, you know, I feel like the growth of the women's game is kind of had definitely grown over the last few years and will continue to grow. I mean, you know, there's so many incredible women's players, and especially on the cricket side, you know, you can name so many. You know, Catherine Brunt, who's just, you know, retired from Test cricket, Anya Shrubsole, you know, the list goes on. And, you know, they're role models, and, you know, young girls should be able to look at them being like, I can play too, and I can do that. I could, you know, and even if it's just, you know, you just play for your local club, that's absolutely fine. Or you just play for fun on a Sunday, that's great as well. But it's just being able to actually have those opportunities to do that and not feel like somebody's going to say to you, or those attitudes are already there in place, like, oh no, you can't play that sport, that's not for you, it's a men's sport, which makes my skin just crawl even saying it.
We can definitely get behind that, can't we, Mihika?
For sure. I had a question. So obviously, as an NGO and even like being a woman watching sport yourself, you obviously have a lot of like information regarding like how these sorts of like issues affect women. So I was wondering, does like intersectionality in terms of being a woman and coming from a minority background, or being a woman and being part of the LGBTQ plus community, does that have a greater impact on how much you can consume and participate in sport?
That's a really good question. I think I would say the kind of attitude towards people from, I mean, I'm not either minority, so I can't say I could speak on behalf of those people, but from people that I know within like our team who are from minority backgrounds, and from the LGBTQ plus backgrounds as well, from that community, they definitely feel like they face it's even like another kind of barrier as well. So, you know, when people were, you know, if they want to give their opinions on social media, they're not facing just sexist comments, they're facing like racist abuse as well, potentially, or they're facing homophobic or transphobic abuse. And that's, you know, I think that's something that, again, that's a massive issue, and definitely something that's really come to the surface in the last kind of few months and, you know, the last couple of years. But obviously there's also some really good organizations out there that are kind of, you know, we've kind of spoken to Kick It Out and kind of tried to work together on things in terms of like education. And we've spoken to Anwar, who's amazing at Fans for Diversity, and you know the work that he's been doing on that side of things. But also on the football side, we partnered up with Pride in Football, and you know we're also really keen to kind of educate ourselves, you know, on kind of LGBTQ plus issues and kind of how to kind of go around those things, because obviously that's another, for those people to have that barrier as well, which is really, that's really sad. And even to the point that in for example in the football industry, the first kind of male footballer came out in 30 plus years, and even that, for me, that was like I couldn't believe that it'd been that long since someone had last come out. But also it's kind of, people are like, well, why is it news? I was like, well, that's a big step that person's taken. You don't know how long it's taken them to get to that position to even say those words, to say it in public, but also being in a very sport dominated environment where by being open, which is super important, you're also opening up yourself to abuse as well.
But I also think it's that mentality that men have that if they show any emotion, or like they're considered weak, when they're not, they'd be far more respected. And I think that's part of the problem. There's this toxic lad culture, lad banter, where you could say something like, for instance, you could be like, oh, that's so gay, which I would never think is an appropriate thing to say, and they'll say that and they won't realize that could set off a chain reaction in someone. So I think it's trying to weed out the toxicity of these issues.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely like an issue itself. It's almost like these attitudes from like the past have kind of passed down in generations, and there have been changes in some ways that have been positive, but in some ways some people kind of almost like stuck, and they don't want things to change because they feel like if someone tries to do something different, or whether it's tackling racist abuse, whether it's tackling homophobic abuse, whether it's tackling sexism, any type of abuse in football, they're like, oh, you're trying to make it all woke, or whatever the word people use. I have no idea. It's just like, well, we live in a multicultural society where if you're going to watch a sport, there's going to be people there from different backgrounds, and why not people from different backgrounds can enjoy it. I actually just happened to look on my phone today. I was actually I was really lucky. I went to watch the Cricket World Cup in Manchester when I used to live, and it was West Indies against New Zealand, and I remember going. It's the first time I'd been to like an international game with a couple of friends, and I just remember like looking around, and there's people from completely different backgrounds, West Indians, people from New Zealand, neutrals like myself, English, and I was just looking around, and it was such a friendly atmosphere. I absolutely loved that Cricket World Cup. I thought it was just amazing to obviously watch, and obviously England won, which was brilliant. Just to be in that experience and just see people from different places and just chatting along, and it was actually one of the best games of cricket I think I've ever watched. I think it was one of those ones where West Indies almost won, but New Zealand, I think they got the very last person out with like a couple of balls left, and it was a really good catch, and it looked like it was going for like 6, and then you just saw the guy, his hand just kind of went up, and you just saw him grab the ball, and just everyone's hearts just sank, because we all kind of ended up supporting like West Indies. But yeah, and it's just like, well, if people can watch games like that all together, and it'd be a really great atmosphere, really fun, and people from different countries can all sit together, then why it should be like that all the time.
I completely agree, because I remember I went for the World Cup as well, and it was a Bangladesh against South Africa match, and we went to the Oval, and that was my first ever like live match in the UK. And I was like, my dad came with me, and I was like, oh my god, imagine if I get to like work at the Oval one day. Imagine like me walking on the ground. The next thing I'm walking in the 100, and I'm like in the Oval changing room, and I was like, who would have thought like that? Like, for me, it was such a dream, and it seemed so unreachable. But like I think being able to go for matches, and like even being able to dream that it is possible is so important, because you never know like which turn life is going to take. And it was so surreal when I was actually in the dressing room to think, literally last year I was wondering, would I ever be able to like do something like this in my life? So like I completely agree about like how important it is to go for live games.
Yeah, I love that as well, because I definitely feel like as then we're like role models and people in the sports industry, especially if you're like younger, like a young girl or teenager kind of growing up. And I think one of my favorite sayings is, if you can see it, you can be it. And like your story there of like, you went to your first game in the UK, and then you thought, oh, I could, imagine if I worked here, and you achieved that, which I absolutely love. And that's the thing, like what you've done, you might not even know it. Like if there'll probably be a young girl out there that'll see that and be like, but I can do that as well, and I can achieve my dreams and potentially work in sport or cricket or whatever they want to do. And that's the thing, it's also about like inspiring the next generation. So I absolutely love that.
I just wanted to ask, when you went to approach the football clubs and when Gloucestershire and Western Storm approached you, was there any resistance from some of the Premier League clubs to get on board with HerGameToo?
So with Gloucestershire, no, because they came to us and were, really, really keen. They were kind of more interested to see if we could spread the idea out. So that's why we kind of had a call, and we thought, this is a really good idea to kind of spread it out into other sports, and it's kind of given us ideas because people were like, well, this isn't just the case in football, it is the case in other sports. In terms of like the football side, when we've partnered with clubs, obviously some of them we approached ourselves, we went through kind of emails and spoke to clubs. Some of them again kind of approached us, really keen. In terms of Premier League, it wasn't really resistance, it's more of with certain things like sponsorship deals and things like that, they couldn't do everything. So like in terms of like having shirts on in certain like dedicated games, but they were like, well, we've got like flags that they gave out to lots of young girls instead. And then at the women's game they were able to wear it at the women's, but they also had things like they bought like blue hoodies and they did a video, and Izzy Christensen put like a post out about HerGameToo and been really, really supportive. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin had also did a video and would part of like the press release around the fixture again was in like a Everton blue HerGameToo hoodie, and that was really amazing. And I was really lucky to be at that game, be at that fixture myself. And it was a real surreal moment to see it, like the logo up on the big screen, and and Everton's a massive stadium, it's like 40,000 people, 35,000, 40,000 people in, and just to kind of see it and just see it at that sort of level as well was just incredible. So no, there hasn't really been like that much resistance. I think it's just sometimes partnerships take longer for different reasons, but every club that we've got on board have been really really willing to to stamp out sexism. Obviously, they work with the Football League, and they do rainbow laces and they do kick it out as well. But to be able to work with them on this has been it's been really, really good. And some of the things we've done together with different clubs has been amazing actually. And to be able to be at some of those games myself, obviously my own club, of course, was a real special day. We did a dedicated fixture, kind of similar to the cricket, where it's back to back, but that was, I think, one of the very first times it's been done in football. So the first team kicked it off at 3:00, and then the women kicked it off at around about 6:15. And it was the first time that the women have played at our stadium. They had their biggest ever crowd, and they won as well, which was amazing. So
So I'm sure you've heard about various programs, such as the Barclays programs that they started to run in different schools to get more girls to play football in secondary and primary school. So I was wondering if you believe that such programs are actually effective.
Yeah, I definitely feel like they're effective. I guess it's just how receptive like the schools are themselves. I think it's really, really important that, opportunities are given to every single school across the country, for, girls to take part, to participate in sport, whatever kind of sport it is, whether it's football or cricket or rugby or, whatever they're kind of interested in really. And, it shouldn't just be based in one area, whether it's like an affluent area, it should be based like everywhere across the country, like Cornwall to Scotland to London to, Wrexham. And it should be something that's, offered and available to all. Obviously, not everyone is interested in sport, or they like different types of sport, and that's okay, but just being able to have those opportunities is really important. And for us, kind of on our football side of things, we're really, really keen on supporting grassroots football, and through that we've kind of, with our merchandise sales, we want to donate the money back into grassroots women's football, because funding is very limited. I think the FA gives something like £70 for every woman, for one coach for every grassroots women's football team, or that's their kind of allotted budget or something they're given. And they've got to play for things like floodlights and kits and equipment, and that's a lot of money. And the funding is so limited, so we kind of want to help out by in any way we can, whether it's donating kit or donating equipment, things that they potentially need. So that's something that we're kind of like we've kind of been working towards and looking at doing. And so hopefully, and to be honest, like with our grassroots clubs as well, they've been so incredible in terms of even we know that the funding is limited, but when they partner with us, they've been so proud and be like, oh, we really want your logo on our kits, whether it's like a sheet, like a sleeve kind of patch, or whether it's on like the shorts or something, or in some way on the kits. And we just think that's so lovely, but also that's kind of sharing kind of the message of what we're doing from like a younger age group as well.
I know that funding in the women's game, especially in women's football, there is such a disparity between the men's, because there was a incident with the Chelsea women in 2009 where they almost went into administration, and it was thanks to John Terry and a couple of other players who he managed to convince to help not only like fund money into the club, and John Terry is still a president of the Chelsea women's team to this day. Like, he funded their kit, their training gear and everything. So it is still a problem to this day, because you even look at the WSL. Yeah, you've got teams like Chelsea, Manchester City and Arsenal whose owners do put money into the women's teams, but then you look at the other 9 teams in the league and their men's team just don't get behind their women's. But then when you flip it on social media, there are certain teams who perhaps don't invest as much money into their women's team, but they're so supportive on social media. So you'll see like Everton talk about their women's team, Tottenham, Chelsea, Manchester City, but then the rest of them do a really poor job. Like, you'd expect a team like Arsenal to sit there, promote their women's team, who are arguably better than their men's, I might add. But it just seems to be that it's left to ex-players like Ian Wright to sort of get people behind the game. So how pleasing would it be to have someone like Ian Wright back the HerGameToo campaign?
I mean, if, I don't know if Ian's going to be listening, but if he is, give us a call, because we would love for you to be supporting us. But no, and the thing is with him, I see him actively supporting the women's game, Arsenal women, but also the Lionesses as well. I saw he was part of that video for the announcement for the European Championships, which is next month. And but I know that he's doing it because he really believes in it, and he's really, really supportive. And when you see like the coverage, and it's mostly women when it's the women's football, but he's the man that's on there, and it's every time. And his knowledge, he obviously watches it, and has, really good knowledge and really understands, the women's game. And do you know what? As a former pro as well, there could be lots of people that dismiss it and say, oh, I'm not going to do that, or why are you making me talk about that? Like, I'm not interested. But he hasn't got that attitude at all. And you know what? Fair play to him.
I was also wondering, now that you've branched onto 2 sports, both cricket and football, is there any like unique differences or different challenges that emerge in cricket that doesn't happen in football, and vice versa?
Oh, that's a good question, actually. I guess more of the challenges will probably be as we kind of hopefully grow. I would just say, obviously, I guess a fundamental difference is at football, obviously in the profession, like the first kind of few tiers, you can't drink on the terraces. Obviously in cricket, it's different. You can drink whilst watching the game. So I guess that's kind of like a barrier in itself. Obviously, people do have drinks before the game when they go to football and after, but obviously you can't drink during. So I guess that's kind of something that's a little bit different. I don't know, really. I guess it feels like I thought that with the football side of things, because obviously my head was kind of more football side. I definitely feel like more, especially in the last kind of few weeks, like it feels like, the misogyny that's, still in football. And like I said, with the social media, it seems to have, even though it obviously has already been there, it felt like more recently it seems to be more coming to the forefront in terms of like cricket side of thing. Like, I don't know if it's because we've been doing more about, like, we've been focusing more on the cricket side, or just kind of, we've set up HerGameToo cricket. Just more women saying, I'm really kind of disappointed by, the comments about women's cricket, or, have received sexist comments themselves, or, and I think that's something that's kind of not obviously ringing alarm bells, because it's like, this is kind of what we've been feeling on, like, in football as well. And it's kind of like, that's obviously a similarity, and obviously it's a real shame, but it's like, it's also about like changing these attitudes. And obviously I guess the preconception with this cricket is it's a white middle class, upper class sport that's only to be enjoyed by gentlemen in posh suits, and it's not. I think last year with the 100, I kind of noticed there was lots of families attending for the first time, and it kind of made it more accessible to families, which I think is a really important thing, because you know, like I said, it should be a game that everyone should enjoy, you know, in terms of whatever format, whether it's T20, ODI, Test, the 100, whichever kind of format. And yeah, I think it's just that really, and just kind of, I think it's similar in terms of like increasing kind of female participation and female fans really. So yeah, there are similarities, but in terms of differences, I'm not quite sure yet. But I think it just be kind of just seeing kind of how things go in terms of, you know, what one, hopefully with the growth of it, and seeing if there is kind of anything that is more uniquely kind of cricket kind of based compared to football based.
I think that's a lovely way to end. I also think these weirdos who tweet these things behind a screen, they need to go outside and get some fresh air, because they're obviously not getting enough oxygen to their brains. Right? If you're that sad that you have to sit behind a screen and tweet all this misogyny, like, you need to get a hobby. And I think it's the fact that some of these people, they're teachers, they're parents, they could be parents to young daughters who want to perhaps pick up this sport, and you're tweeting absolute utter nonsense.
That's the scariest thing, because I was like, I know I can speak on behalf of myself, like in my family, and I'm very, very fortunate that my dad and my granddad, who, you know, encouraged me to, like, took me to football, and then I started watching more cricket with my dad as well, like taking him to games, going to games together, that I've never once experienced anything to be like, oh, like he wouldn't want me there, wouldn't want me talking about it. It's something that I love sport, he loves sport, we enjoy it together. It doesn't make a difference whether I'm male or female. I'm his daughter, I love it just as much as he is. You know, one of the things is I ended up winning tickets, actually very, very luckily, through Nissan during the World Cup. I actually ended up going to the Old Trafford semi-final, and the first person I texted was my dad, going, you're gonna have to take this afternoon, this whole day off. Like, I've just been offered 2 free tickets through Nissan to go to the Cricket World Cup. It's India, New Zealand, like, you're gonna have to come. And he's like, oh my god. He's like, you sure no one else? Like, you want to ask anyone else, like your friends? I'm like, no. It's like, you're my dad, like, you're first person in my head to invite along. So, but yeah, but like on the flip side, like, I feel sorry for those people out there that, you know, feel like they can't enjoy sport, or, and then they have those barriers in place because of, you know, people around them that, you know, still harbor these attitudes. And, like, you know, you're right, like, it's 2022, like that. I think that's all it needs to be said.
I think a final one from the both of us is, for our listeners, if they did want to get involved in HerGameToo, how could they go about that, and how can they follow you on social media to keep up with everything you're doing, if they can't perhaps afford to buy merchandise but they still want to be part of the movement?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, like, any support for us means everything. So we are on social media, so Twitter, Facebook and Instagram at HerGameToo. So that's our main football one. And then, yeah, and that has links to our website, which has links to our email addresses. And then on the cricket side, our cricket account is HGT Cricket, or one word. And again, like I said, it's the link to our email and our website. One of the things we're looking at doing, especially on the football side, on the cricket side, getting on my sports confusion today, is, yeah, like we said, we're really keen to have ambassadors, you know, for each of the counties. So yeah, obviously, if anyone is out there listening and, you know, is a really kind of avid supporter of their local kind of county, yeah, we're really keen to speak to you and kind of, you know, want to just kind of spread the message as far and wide as possible.
Thanks for Lucy for taking some time out of her busy day to chat to us about HerGameToo. And like she said, if you want to get involved, just email them, go on the website. Like I said at the beginning of this episode, it's really important that cricket is a game for everyone. And it's 2022, we shouldn't still have to be dealing with misogynistic and sexist comments just because women like to enjoy and watch and even play sport. So we're so grateful that HerGameToo were able to spare some time and talk to us, and we wish them well with everything they're doing, and we're just so happy to help support them in any way, shape or form. And to all our listeners, if you want to keep up to date with everything that we're doing, you can follow us on Twitter at WCricketChat, on Instagram at Women's Cricket Chat. And if you want to give us a like on Facebook, we are Women's Cricket Chat. If you'd like to give our personal Twitters a follow, then it's at HannahT1194, at GeorgieHeath27, at CassieCoombs98, at Mihika Varshni, and I'm at Alex and Mihika. This has been Women's Cricket Chat. Tune in next time.